Welcome to the Occupational Safety Leadership Podcast, episode number 113 with Tim Pottorff, also known as the Ergo Guy. First off, Tim, am I saying your name correctly?
Pottorff.
Say that one more time, Tim.
Pottorff. It
That's going to be really hard for me. How about if I just say Tim from now on?
That's quite all right.
Okay, thank you, Tim. Can you take a couple seconds and tell the audience about yourself?
All right. Well, my background's industrial engineering. I started off as a manufacturing engineer, worked at Texas Instruments for a while in defense electronics, and then I'd always been fascinated about ergonomics from one of my professors, Steve Kahns at Kansas State University. And so I was able to go back to grad school after TI and study under Kahns and Dr. Margaret Rees, who is my major professor, and Dr. Paul McRae. And I got to study more ergonomics, learned about a little bit more in depth in the field. And my first ergo job was actually at Alcoa's Warrock operations in southern Indiana. It's a fascinating place. They smelted about 100,000 metric tons of metal a year. They recycled 1 billion cans a year, and this is in the early to mid 90s. So it was just an incredible place. They had their own dock and port on the Ohio River, so the barges of alumina would be shipped. They would be refined in either Australia or Brazil, and then they'd be shipped to the Gulf Coast of the U.S. and refined into alumina ore, so the bauxite would go to alumina. Then they'd be barged up the Mississippi and Ohio Rivers to our facility. It was really fat. We had almost 4,000 people on site. We had about every ergonomics issue under the sun in that place, and I had some really good mentors from a general safety side. We had each of the smelting, the casting, the rolling, and the finishing areas had a safety professional, and those folks just taught me so much about just general safety, from how to put your earplug in right to don't stand under a suspended load, those sorts of things. And then I spent about 22.5 years at Zurich Services Corporation as a field consultant. And, there I saw, I was in mines 900 feet below New Mexico. I was processing flat platforms 13 stories above Baton Rouge. I've gone from Tokyo to Tupelo to Topeka, you name it. And then I've been independent since 2017, gosh, can't believe it's been 7 years. And provide ergonomic services. I've got a team of independent folks I draw on, and so we all work together.
Oh, awesome. Good. Well, sounds like you basically have seen it all and done it all at this point. And
just about in ergonomics.
Hopefully my questions are not too easy and basic for you. So when I went to school, the ergonomics was still kind of like this little voodoo type monster. Like they kind of knew it did something. They kind of knew it hurt people. And even to this day, I really think I'm doing a great job of doing ergonomic assessments, but I really struggle with how do I know it's really effective? And maybe it's just me just being a nerd and focusing on math. And because I can't put a number on it, I really struggle with that whole thing.
Yeah, and I think that's where we have an advantage today that we didn't have 20, 30 years ago, is the researchers have done a really good job of developing some methodologies we can use that are relatively, user-friendly to give us some numbers, to quantify some magnitude or order of magnitude of risk of the job. Then we can go back, we can do a pre-assessment, and we go post-fix assessment, if you will, to say, okay, where does the risk, has it stayed the same or has it gone down? And I mean, that's from more of an industrial aspect. If you look at the office aspect, generally it's almost an immediate relief, because it's easier to make an on-site immediate adjustment to the person's workstation there. And yeah, I'll give you a little bit of gap after this if you want to. One person, I did her assessment and made some adjustments, and she said, "Wow, I need a cigarette," but she felt so good. So, anyway, that was when people have a smile on their face, that like, gee, I feel so much better, and then their neighbor wants to have help. But that's the beauty of the office assessment. And in the industry, it's a lot more difficult.
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
Oh.
Especially when there's like a fixed station, there's a mechanical press, it may be a conveyor belt, that kind of stuff, of course, is a little more difficult.
Right.
But for the audience, let's just kind of go back and we'll unpack like the very
Sure.
first steps. So I'm going to assume that I'm a person with pain, and I'm going to say, Tim, I think I have a lot of pain. Is there anything that you can do to help me? So let's just kind of walk through like the beginning steps and just kind of look at
Yeah.
the
Well,
process.
first off, we'd probably say, okay, where are you having pain? I think that's where are you having problems? What, is it your neck? Is it your shoulders? Is it your back? Is it your hands or wrists? Just to figure out,
Mhm.
what's going on with the body. And I like to just step back and just watch how a person works. I have a friend growing up. He had a sign above his desk that said, Work fascinates me. I can sit and watch it for hours and hours and hours." And pretty much that's what I do. I watch other people work.
Right, right, right.
And but seriously, I take photographs, I'll take video just to see what's going on. Are they making an extended reach out to a fixture? Are the materials placed too low or too high? And then why? Why is this happening? Why are these things occurring? So generally, we can narrow it down if we know what's going on with the body, and a lot of times, like I said, just watching people work. For a time during my Zurich years, I can't believe it. I probably visit 100 to 150 client locations in a year at a minimum of about 10, say, workstation assessments on average. So I've probably gotten the chance to do about 35 to 40,000 workstation
Wow.
assessments over the years. We start doing the math, and it becomes second nature. I can't go on one of those complimentary plant tours anymore and not my brain just kicks in.
Right, 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 right.
Even my kids will say, "Hey, yeah, well, that doesn't look good." And my son will draw
Mhm.
stick figure cartoons um, on takeout boxes just
Mhm.
to get a little gig. But again, it boils down to seeing what people are doing, how they're doing it, why they're doing it, and then seeing if there's anything we can do. Sometimes it might be a material placement or a tool, simple design change to a tool. We did a lot of work with hand tools when I was at Alcoa, because we had these massive smelting pots. We really needed to mechanize more of the work, but it was going to be a $12 million project. That wasn't going to happen.
Mhm.
So we
Right.
had to say, okay, what can we do? When I do workshops, I go through an exercise with folks. Okay, and I give them 3 levels of spending they're allowed to do. Okay, you know, what can we do on the cheap with what we have available today? Within the facility, what can we do if, say, we go to a hardware or home improvement store and get some a tool or piece of metal or some wood and make some adjustments, and then what can we do for capital? What do we need to do for capital fix? And so I try to break things down. So to the short term, medium term, long term types of things that we can do. Like you say, sometimes we don't have a lot of wiggle room because of a process of equipment, but I think it's always important for our companies to put things on a bucket list, a long term bucket list.
Right, right, right. I know that many times I can do some very fast, like interim things as I'm waiting to really engineer out the hazard and
Mhm.
really get some money.
Yeah.
I always get that money. I never get it as fast as I want, of course. So I always have to focus
Mhm.
on like what can I do now to really help
Mhm.
people. But I try to
Yeah.
also focus on um, just know this is just a interim step. We really have
Yeah.
more to do because I really don't want people to think that we're just trying to get them to shut up, and
Right.
then
Right.
we'll just go focus on something else because it
Mhm.
really does take some time and some money, to
Yeah.
really do things then.
Yeah. And,
Oh.
and and one of the things I try to focus on is saying, okay, how is this going to affect KPIs or key performance indicators?
Mhm.
If we don't have somebody reaching quite so far or doing as much bending, you can save a certain percent of labor hours, and gives a person the person's body a chance to recover. And if I'm working in that awkward position or have high force exertion, I'm going to wear out a lot more quickly than if I'm working in an optimal strike zone position. So I always say, how can we impact productivity? How can we impact things like quality? Because again, if we can eliminate a material handling step, and oftentimes we can, then the less we handle something, the fewer times we have the chance to drop it.
Right.
And so there's a quality piece in there. And there's also an overtime and scheduling piece. When people get hurt, especially if they're unrestricted or away from work, they can't do the job, then a company has to schedule somebody else to fill in. And what happens then is you start having a lot of times overtime. And studies show, and I've seen anecdotally at clients, is that the more hours a person works is almost directly correlated to the number of soft tissue injuries and illnesses that are being reported. So,
interesting.
Mhm.
I had not seen that or
Yeah.
heard about that before.
Yeah,
Oh, interesting.
it's overtime / hours worked, and definitely. So again, if we
Okay.
can keep people healthy in the first place, and that's where prevention through design comes into play. And the challenge with that is 99% of the time I have to come in after the fact, but where we can design processes well in the first place, we don't have that as much of that negative impact from injuries and illnesses. What happens, it sort of becomes an endless loop, a self-fulfilling prophecy, in that we just can't get out of that cycle of overtime and injury and overtime.
Right.
We just get stuck in that rut.
Right. I've been able to look at some brand new processes and how that they're going to go back and optimize tools and machinery and all that. And a lot of times the vendors are really good about working with you, but every so often I just find a vendor who's just like these things are selling like hotcakes. I'm not going to adjust a single thing on this. So sometimes you do find a vendor that's very positive, proactive. They really want to help, and others, I don't think it's that they really do not want to help. They're just short-staffed. Everything is selling great, and they're just not going to rock that boat. Everything's
Yeah.
going great for them. So,
Yeah.
I think I'd like to. So the one thing that I think about when I think about things that are like carpal tunnel, things that are like injuries, is we all think about carpal tunnel. And so you've done, let's just say 35 or 40,000 of these assessments. What are some of the other big ones that really kind of jump out to you that maybe, me and the audience, we just don't think of?
Shoulders and backs.
Oh,
It's shoulders and backs get folks a lot, whether it's a lot of forward bending for lifting. And the Ohio State did a study, gosh, about 20 years ago, where they took fresh frozen cadaver spines and hooked them up to fixtures and started flexing them, and then they ran MRIs at various angles of flexion or bending for bending. And if their estimation is, even with a light load, if a person's lifting, there's about a 20 to 50 times greater risk for back injury in that position than if a person's able to work in an upright posture.
okay.
That's the thing. I think it's McLeod. I think it's a 1999 book, stated that if I work with my hands consistently at or above shoulder height, I have about a 10 times greater risk of shoulder injury than if I'm able to work at elbow height. So those are sorts of things that come into play. And I see that a lot. I'll go into a client, and if we'll look at the data, and if it's a lot of times it's focused on one area of the body, and like one client I've been working with for quite a while, is shoulders, and they're making good progress. And I have to keep bringing back shoulder, just making sure this is where your people are getting hurt. And it's I've been working with their engineers, I've been working with their supervisors, with their hourly rank and file employees, and we're actually making some good progress. But just say, okay, focus. As one of my professors, Dr. Kanji, used to say, you focus on the rocks in the stream that you can see, And then when you take care of those rocks, you lower the water in the stream, and you see more rocks. So you focus on those priorities. Okay, where are the issues? And again, a lot of times there are organizations where folks will say, well, injuries are just a cost of doing business. But if you look at the impact on the business, over from the research and actual data I've seen, the average days away case relating to days away cases, 40% of all days away cases relate to soft tissue / ergonomics or job design issues. 40% of the severity or cost of all days away cases apply to the soft tissue / ergonomics cases. So if and the average cost of these cases is about 25,000. So if I have an operating margin of 10%, then I have to sell $250,000 worth more of widgets to break even, to earn that cash to pay for that one claim.
Right.
And that sort of ties back into the overtime too. We have to keep running production, because we're not just running production for profit. We're just trying to pay that claim to break even. Because most companies, if you look at the world of workers' comp, they're unless they're a guaranteed cost program, their deductible is $250,000, if not more. So it's like if your car, you might have a $500 deductible. If you have an accident, $500 is out of your pocket. Well, it's $250,000. You almost have to permanently totally disable, or kill somebody occupationally wise to hit that $250,000 deductible.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So
that sounds like that's a very good strategy for people, is to sit down and have that money tied to that accident. Thus, then the accident is then tied to production and all that stuff. Okay.
Oh yeah, this is how many more widgets you have to sell, and the numbers are incredible. Generally, it's about 2 hours of production. Doesn't matter where I am, whether it's distribution, manufacturing, whatever. It's pretty fascinating. It's fun. My background's engineering. I'm a numbers guy, so it's fun.
Right. Right. Well, so most of my stuff, it's just office things. But I definitely know that when I'm doing projects at home, I'm doing something on my car, just little things like that, where I have my shoulders up and I'm doing something. It's not that bad at first, but eventually it's really hard. It's really hard to keep going. So I got to assume anybody who's doing like some overhead work, electricians are running wires and conduit and all that, that has to really be hard on people.
Anything, and I see production operations of that sort, and it's I think that the challenge is design engineers don't know what they don't know.
Right.
And I remember doing a course for engineers, late 90s, I think, and it was a full day of workshops and things, and everybody left, and I was cleaning up, and this engineer got in his car. He started to drive away. He circled back to the parking lot, came back and says, thanks for not wasting my time. This is valuable.
Right.
And that took a lot of courage for him to do that.
Oh, yes. Well, I think that some people feel so much pressure, and sometimes the pressure is self-induced and not always company type pressure, but they feel that pressure that they just got to get this done, and it's really hard. Now, it isn't even you. It could have been like equally like quality. It could have been a meeting about production that they don't want to be at. There's a lot of other things too out there.
And it's that sometimes I don't think, how do I say this? I believe they feel that if they have to ask for outside help, that they're less valuable to the organization.
Oh yeah.
And that's where we get into trouble. And they say, well, they go with these assumptions. Frankly, my sister and her husband are mechanical engineers, and so we talk every once in a while about stuff. And so I'll ask her. So, I remember one time I asked her, so did you ever take ergonomics classes in college? And we went to the same university, and no, it was an elective. And if I have to take, I'm not going to take another engineering class. I was going to take something
fun.
It wasn't. So that's one of the challenges, from, if we look at academia, is unless you're in an industrial and systems engineering program, you're probably not going to have some sort of an ergonomics course, even basic stuff. And so and that's where I find I have some of my best successes in doing training for engineers, saying, hey, here's some things, here's some numbers you can work with, and say, let them do some discovery themselves.
Right, 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 right. And sometimes people, like you said, if you don't really know that there's a problem, you think you're designing things properly, you're doing things, you may not
Mhm.
get that, you may not get that feedback from people who are buying your stuff, people selling your stuff.
Or
So,
using.
so to you, you're just,
Mhm.
making it and making it. There's no
Yeah.
issue out there.
Yeah. Yeah. And product design's a whole other animal that, I will get some things like, oh, this was not put together very well, or those sorts of things. And I pretty much focused on the industrial and office aspect and hospitality too. Um, one of the things I've learned is a different industries, if you will, place different emphasis on employee health and safety.
Hmm, hmm.
And even we've talked a lot about manufacturing and a little bit about the office, and we've done hundreds of assessments in the hospitality sector, and I gave a talk a couple years ago, and I'm giving a similar one, but I'm not using the same title. But I said hospitality, the industry, ergonomics, and safety left behind. So there's so much need out there in the world, but that where people are hurting. The jobs are difficult. They're low wage job, particularly performed by minorities, some who haven't been in this country very long, and so they're afraid to stand to raise their hand and say, "Hey, I hurt."
Right,
And
right.
and so it bothers me when I go into the site. Doesn't matter what you're doing, what a company's doing, and they say zero lost, zero injuries for 399 days, and I start looking at the job. It's like, there's no way that's right.
Right, 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 right.
I know. I was like, I can't say that per se. It's like I don't really,
Right, right, right,
it doesn't make me comfortable, especially
right.
when I see their operations. Some places I can go into, and it's like, okay, yeah, I believe you, but
Hmm.
a lot of cases, people are not reporting stuff, and I think that's really important for people who hear this. If they have an issue that they think may be related to work, report it, get it on paper, and we can. I've gone in and I've done assessments, and there are times when the assessment said yes, there is a potential work related cause, and other times I said I can't find anything that's related to the work,
Right,
and
right,
but
right,
just let us take a look and confirm.
right, right. So I think that it's really super important that as soon as something kind of starts to creep up, you just you get on it as quick as possible. I do know some people have a little bit more pride, and boy, they
Mhm.
really don't want to say, hey, I just don't feel comfortable. I'm tired. I'm a little beat
Uh-huh.
up. I'm a little. So I do think that with others, and I put myself in the same boat. Like when I was young, I would never tell anybody that I was hurting because I was like, well, but then everybody's going to know that I'm actually human and not,
Mhm.
and not this great
You
guy that can go all day.
mean
So
you're not Superman?
no. And now that I'm older, the slightest bit, yeah,
Mhm.
now, I'm
Mhm.
into it. So,
And you bring up a good point about taking care of things, because I was able to sit about a year and a half ago at a talk by Dr. Mary Barbie of Temple University. She's a cellular biologist, and I know she dumbed her talk down for us in the group. I mean, it went over here, so I just took about 4 or 5 pages of notes, because then I knew I could go back and dissect them. And one thing she said, especially with soft tissue injuries and illnesses, is a person, to avoid scar tissue on those soft tissues, you need to address and mitigate the swelling and pain within 6 weeks of onset of symptoms.
oh, that's pretty fast, actually.
That is,
Mhm.
I mean, and
Right.
usually folks will wait 2, 3 weeks, and after
Mhm.
that, you're halfway there. And the other piece is, and I know we don't have all day, well, I want to bring it up, is soft tissue musculoskeletal injuries and illnesses are a leading factor in opioid use, abuse, addiction, death.
Oh,
Because opioids are
interesting.
often used to treat the pain
Right,
and
right.
discomfort, and women tend to be more apt to be prescribed or become addicted, and it creates so many issues that, and the traditional rice therapies aren't necessarily as effective as one would hope.
Hmm,
And Dr. Barbie's talk was just excellent, and I actually I'm giving a talk on MSDs and opioids at the ASSP Region 4 conference in Orlando in May. Um, but I think that's something we have to bring out too. It's the not fun side of ergonomics. It's the serious side.
yeah, 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 yeah. I had never even kind of thought about that. About, well, everybody has pain, and you have to do something for this pain. So
You got to listen to your body.
yeah,
Listen to your body, and you know, and you just get help. It's okay to get help, and that's where you want we want to believe that everyone has a safe work environment in which to ask for help. That's not always the case,
right,
and so um, that's what we still struggle with, but we just have to keep after it, and folks have to keep asking until they get the help they need.
right, right, right. Well, Tim, I think that this is a fantastic stopping point for us. I'd like to bring you back for part two, and we can focus over on the opioids and
Okay,
ergonomics. I think
sure.
I want to sit down and educate myself more so that I can ask some better questions
Mhm.
for the future.
Okay.
But if you could take a couple seconds and let folks know where they can find you out there.
Okay, I'm LinkedIn, Timothy Pottorff, the Ergo Tim, Pottorff. And I'm also have a info at qp3ergosystems.com. That's probably the best email. The easiest way to reach me, my double letters of my name, but info at qp3ergosystems.com, or look me up on LinkedIn, probably the best two ways. Or my number 847-921-3113, and that goes directly to me. No voicemail, no push one, push two, push three. It goes directly to me.
Perfect, perfect,
Well,
perfect.
thank you so
Uh,
much for the time. I appreciate it, David.
Tim, thank you. Thank you so much. And
Yeah,
I'm going to need some time to do some research, and I definitely want to have you back for the part two. Thank you so
sure.
much, Tim.
Sounds good.
So,
Thank you. Have a great day.
all right. Okay, Tim, thank you so much.